test for YouTube, and we will see what's going on. All right, so we're good there. Hi YouTube, are we all good? Let me know whenever y'all get here. We can go ahead and get that squared away. Once again, if you all don't mind sharing this video, hearts and likes only. We're about to get started here. I think YouTube is up and running. Yeah, we're good on YouTube. Oh, nice, good. We're already up and running. All right, YouTube, if y'all don't mind sharing this, greatly appreciate it. I'm gonna share this on Twitter as soon as I find my YouTube app. There we go. Please share this on Twitter. We appear to be up and running on Facebook. We're up and running on YouTube. And so we are good to go. Now, with that being said, I do want to, before I get into the nitty gritty, I want to talk about the optics of this particular plan. And the reason why I said I want to talk about the optics is because, well, I just don't think that anything good, well, I won't say anything. Let me change the title of this video. Okay, so sorry about that. I changed the title of this video, but I don't think that anything good has ever come in the middle of the night when it comes to politics, ever. If you have to rush a piece of legislation through, everybody's hands with scribble marks on it, you're rushing it because it's not like they weren't going to be able to vote on it next week. Like, there's nothing stopping them from taking the time to go back and edit the remarks, and change the things that do need to be changed. Now, the reason that they did not do that is specifically because they didn't care. All the things that they wanted to stay in the plan, the GOP specifically, are still existent in the plan. They had the votes. It didn't matter whether or not the Democrats wanted the plan to pass as is, or would things change. They had the votes necessary. And when you have the votes necessary, you're gonna do whatever you can. Just throw it through. Pitch like a fastball. And let's be very clear about something. That is a good sign that you, the average American, are about to be royally screwed. That is how. That's just like it's a telltale, if you will. It's politics 101. If you end up seeing something pass in the middle of the night, like whenever net neutrality gets repealed, it'll probably be at 2:00 in the morning, to be totally honest with you. So just based off of the optics, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And if you go into the details of the plan itself, even more so, it doesn't look good. So I want to go ahead and cover some of the main points of the GOP tax plan and how it may personally affect you. Now, one thing that the tax plan does, which some people will probably consider good, is it simplifies the amount of brackets that are had. So there used to be 7, now there are 4. At the highest tax bracket is 39%, which is relatively close to what it was before. But of course, we even know before that that's not really what a lot of people were paying. But there's not a lot of change in there outside of the fact that it went from 7 tax brackets to 4. So there's not a lot of change there. Now, here's where it gets a little ugly. Here's where it gets a little dicey. They've made massive, massive cuts to corporate taxes. So before, the corporate tax was, I want to say, roughly 39% as well. However, the effective corporate tax rate was actually around 22 to 23%. Now, the corporate tax rate is now 20%. Excuse me, it was 35%. Now it's 20%. So obviously, the effective tax rate is going to be much lower. We won't know until the next iteration of taxes are calculated. However, we do know that if the effective tax rate at 35% was 22 for corporations, imagine what it's going to be when it's 20%. They're going to be pretty much paying nothing. It gets better though. If you get the majority of your income from overseas, guess what? You get a huge tax break. Yay! In other words, if you're building factories overseas, getting your clothing made overseas, if you're importing labor from overseas, anything like that, or even putting your labor there, anything like that will allow you to get a huge tax break, and anything that you make from that income that you gain from overseas is virtually intaxable. So that's fun. It doesn't really help us at all. I thought this was for the average American. Total lie. I don't know why they said it was for average Americans, because clearly it is not. Now, with that, it gets better. It gets better. It gets so much better. So, say if you got a lot of money, right? Some people would consider themselves a business. I technically, as a radio show host, I am technically a sole proprietor. I am an independent business. Now, there is this thing called pass-through corporations. And essentially, if you get all of your money, or most of your money, through a corporation, your tax bracket as an individual will go from 39% to 20%. Bruh. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So they already lowered it because it was about 43 to 44% for a wealthy individual, for a well-off individual already. It was between that. So they lowered it to 39%. And by the way, if you consider yourself your own personal consultant, because any accountant with any common sense is going to tell you, because this is how accountants get paid, they're going to tell you, hey, make yourself an LLC, because this is something that Trump pretty much already does. Before, there were no tax breaks that you could get for doing so, although there were a lot of like lawsuit benefits, banking benefits, and things like that you get from making yourself an LLC, or making your family name an LLC, or making your name a brand. Now, with this, if you're a millionaire and you're just like, hey, my brand is very important to me, I'm just going to go ahead and make it an LLC, all of a sudden you're a corporation. All of a sudden, you go from paying 39% to 20%. And if you're a damn, like a musician, for example, and you do a world tour, I'm not picking on musicians, but like if Drake, for example, decided to do a world tour exclusively overseas, he actually would pay significantly less than what he was paying in the old plan. So clearly, as you can already tell, this tax plan almost exclusively favors the rich. Now, there is about 1 or 2 cases that I've read about that this is not the case. Now, if you make under a certain amount of money, pretty much if you're low wage, low income family, if you're a low wage or a low income family, essentially you effectively won't have any income tax after the deductions, because they have increased the amount of standard deductions. So that's good. It's seemingly good. I'll put it like that. Because you know who that affects? All of the GOP states. Because the GOP states have horrible economies, mostly due to the politics of the GOP politicians. So they have made it so that the people that are afflicted the most by poverty, which obviously are minorities, but the places where minorities are mostly afflicted by poverty, like in the blue states, they have better programs to help people in those type of situations. But in the red states, they're pretty much kind of, hey, figure it out. And this is their way of saying, hey, but we looked out for you guys. We looked out for y'all. We got you. So instead of actually building up their economy and making a sustainable economy where businesses want to go to, people want to start independent businesses in, it makes, where it makes their consumers and their educated want to stay and grow their wealth there and invest in the state and in the infrastructure there. Instead, they kind of take this cheap way out. And somebody might say, well, why do you figure it's a cheap way out? And why do you think that they're only doing this to benefit, their personal constituents and not anybody else? And, it's pretty much, the GOP and the banks they ran away with this one, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why I say that is because in the blue, so if you have a limit now, if you have a house that's worth over $500,000, or if you're trying to buy a house over $500,000, you can no longer claim that as a deduction, and you can know your property taxes are capped at $10,000. Now, if you live in states like California, New York, Massachusetts, some parts of Florida, Maryland, if you've ever lived in that area, good God, the houses there are super expensive. Any nice area in general, like generally nice area, upper middle class, you can know if your house creeps over 500,000, you will not be able to claim that as a deduction. You will not be able to claim more than $10,000 in property taxes on your deductions. It's going to utterly destroy the housing markets. So once again, just like in every other scenario we've seen with the GOP in the past, they are killing the blue states that generate a lot of wealth, that have a lot of people who are college educated, independent business owners, that have established corporations, startups, booming housing markets, etc., etc. And they are punishing them for their total lack of any type of knowledge of basic economics for their own state, because they shroud their lack of understanding of basic economics by trying to do things like this. Hey, we're taking care of you. They're not going to mention the fact that in the same breath they're saying that we're going to cut standard deductions for lower income families. In that same breath, they're not telling you, by the way, depending on the state or the area that you live in, your health insurance is going to jump up dramatically. It's already jumped up dramatically. So any type of deduction that you would have gotten at that point, it doesn't matter. Because now you're paying X amount for health insurance, paying X amount for your deductible. And if you have, because some people are going to say then, well, no, because I got the subsidy. Because there's like a really kind of like an all or nothing subsidy thing going on right now, where you get like $0 to $25, or you just don't get a subsidy at all. Now, here's a problem with that. Do you know what those deductibles on those plans look like? $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. If you end up in the hospital, because if you're going in that scenario, 9 times out of 10, if you're going to get a plan, like it's that much of a necessity that you're willing to pay a $5,000 or $6,000 deductible, and it has nothing to do with your tax penalty, it's because you need the plan. By the time you factor in doctor's visits, paying your deductible out for your doctor's visits if you have one of those plans, paying your deductible out for your prescriptions if you have one of those plans, and then paying your prescriptions, hoping you don't have extra prescription coverage that you need to get. Once you factor all that in, you don't have a deductible. And once again, the people mostly affected by this are those in red states, ladies and gentlemen. New York isn't going to be affected by the healthcare plan that much because they have great healthcare coverage. California, for the most part, has great healthcare coverage. Minnesota, for the most part, has great healthcare coverage. Massachusetts, places like those have pretty decent healthcare coverage. But now, because your state has been innovative, because your state has at least tried to make life easier for you, because your state has tried to generate wealth in your personal economy, allowing you to make deductions where necessary, allowing you to do things like claim your medical expenses through health share accounts and things like that. Not anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Now you're getting punished. The GOP cannot have places like California making deductions when they're trying to give all those tax breaks to their rich friends. Do you understand what this means for like I said, this is bad. The housing market was the telltale sign that we were about to hit an economic crash. So after we had at least one good thing happen, where the Dow ended up being past like 25,000, which is great. Right after that happens, we see a plan like this pass that once again shows a total ignorance of how the market works on behalf of the GOP. They don't know. They have zero idea. Either that or they just don't care, which is probably a little bit of both. Now, there's, like I said, there are no more state and local tax deductions off of your federal taxes. Yay, right? Now there is another good thing I will say. You can the tax credit for children have increased, and they raised the income minimum for that a little bit as well. So that's pretty good, I guess. But I would rather you just not screw me, overall. You can't say I'm gonna beat the hell, I'm gonna beat your face in, but at least I put on boxing gloves. No, you still beat my face in. Just because you made it a little bit softer does not change the fact that you just beat the crap out of my tax bracket, which is exactly what's happened. It's not beneficial, really. When you're talking about the grand scheme, all the comprehensive things that have happened. Don't forget the cuts to Medicare and Medicaid that are still included. It's overall people who are super wealthy. And it's not just regular wealthy people. This is specifically to help super wealthy individuals. You gotta be, I'm talking about Trump's family, like the Walden family, pretty much everybody in Donald Trump's cabinet, actually. So, this is the biggest tax reform in 31 years. And it will take a toll on our economy. So if you haven't noticed, what ends up happening is, and this is exactly how it's going to go down. So this is you heard it here first. You heard it here first. So no, somebody asked me, what about your mortgage interest? No, you can no longer deduct that. You cannot deduct your mortgage interest anymore. Over 500,000, you cannot deduct your mortgage interest. So what's going to happen is our economy is booming in part to the corporatist policies that Obama put in place, and it's continued to boom in part because of some of the corporatist administration and corporatist policies that Trump has put in place. Of course, the stock market is going to rise. Why wouldn't consumers have confidence in a stock market that's being politically controlled by by corporatist administration, right? Invest. You'd be stupid not to at this point if you are an investor. So of course, when you do things like put CEOs in power, political power, of course the stock market's going to increase. Now with that, you're going to see a tremendous amount of returns, on your investments. With that, CEOs, VPs, presidents, corporations, LLCs, consultants, banks, everyone gets stupid rich. Stupid rich. Not like a little rich, stupid. We saw it happen in 05, 06, and then as it started decreasing in 06, 07, and 08. Stupid rich, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not like they're going to get so rich that they're going to need somewhere to put or hide their money if the tax man comes. Or better yet, how about this, GOP? I need you to change the bracket up. I know it's going to hurt us in the long term, but by that time, I'll either invest my money overseas, I will put my stuff in tax havens, the loopholes that the GOP swore they were going to close. Oh, if we just lower the corporate tax, we can close the loopholes. Instead, they made more. So they increased the amount of loopholes corporate tax, like corporations get. They increased the amount of loopholes that super wealthy individuals get. You can now make yourself a LLC and only pay 20% versus 39%. So everybody who is about to be super wealthy because of this recent Wall Street hike, once again, positive in some ways, negative in some ways, but predictable because of who is in power, they're going to hurt us everyday citizens long term by essentially taking all of that wealth that we accrue for them and redistributing it. What the hell does that sound like? Wealth redistribution. I just couldn't imagine who avidly, fights anyone, anybody, any type of rhetoric that includes the phrase wealth distribution, wealth redistribution. I don't know. Is there a party that complains about that, calls that socialism? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a very socialist country. It's just not the type of socialism that we're accustomed to reading about. Because this is the type of socialism where wealth is redistributed from us working class, from the middle class, even the upper middle class. And it goes straight to the top 1%. So for those of you who swear that you just hate socialism with a passion, you're living in it. It's just not benefiting you. It's socialism for the wealthy. And I hate to break it to you, for some of you holding on to this hope that one day I'm going to be super rich, 99% chance, literally, because obviously the super rich is 1%. So there's a 99% chance that you will not be super rich. So if you're applauding this tax bracket, like, yeah, one day when I finally hit the lotto, when I go to the, to the gas station at the BP, I'm going to hit it one day. And the one day I do hit it, I don't want to pay 39% or whatever I get back in taxes. So, hey, Trump, thanks for looking out for the working man. No, absolutely not. You're not going to be rich. This is going to hurt you. You are happy now. Everything seems to be hunky-dory because you have, I'm not going to pretend like unemployment isn't dropping. That is true. That is a fact. Unemployment is dropping. Jobs are becoming more abundant. Real jobs, not so much, but jobs are becoming more abundant. At least, full-time jobs, not economically viable full-time jobs. But once again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it because that is true. Jobs are being created, but they're not like real jobs. With that being said, millennials are opting out of buying houses already. So it's that's already killing the market. Empty nesters are not going to move because they have now no incentive to move. Once the baby boomer generation is on its way out, and they are very much so on their way out, once the generation right before mine realizes there's no incentive on buying a house anymore, that once they've reached to a certain income bracket and they just start renting from property or from leasing agents and things like that, the market is going to crash again. Unquestionably so. It's going to happen. We're paying back college debt. Me personally, thank God I'm not. But my generation is not. They're not buying houses because they're paying back their debt. They're trying to establish their credit, which is almost impossible to do while you're paying back massive amounts of debt. If you don't get a great job as soon as you graduate college, now you have massive debt and no job. So you're putting a 10-year cap, whereas 2 generations ago, you could buy a house at 22, 23, 24 years old. Now you can't do that. You're not going to buy your first house until you're about 30 unless you're in the military. So we're seeing this massive increase in welfare for the top 1%. At the same time, they're thinking so short term. This is what happens when you have a bunch of old white guys in office making decisions for everybody else. They'll have their stash, their millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars stashed away. They will be living in our cars, which, I mean, a lot of millennials kind of do anyway. You know, you have to work twice the amount of hours to make the amount of income, respectively, that people were getting 5-10 years ago. So that's the gist of the plan. If you have any questions, write in the comment below. We'll see what we can do to figure it out. Because obviously there are going to be more and more details released about the plan as it rolls out. Because they just made a bunch of changes last night. Because like I said, ladies and gentlemen, that's always good. Whenever the GOP or any politician makes a bunch of changes to a plan in the middle of the night and tries to force it down your throat. Anybody know that one drunk friend that you got in the middle of the night? They're always trying to just change locations. I'm bored. When have you ever just let your drunk friend change locations in the middle of the night and it never turned out well? Without any details. You didn't get any details before it happened. They just try to rush you out of the house and go to the next place. And you end up at your drunk friend's booty call's house and you're sitting on the couch texting on Facebook and Twitter like, man, what the hell did I do this? I should have never left with her. I should have got the details first. That's what happens. That's what happens. So, good luck, everybody. We need to definitely combat this whatever way we can. You know, let's go ahead and start documenting all the ways that people are affected by this, because it's something that will be a big deal going forward, and it's going to be a big deal with how we approach the argument whenever we have to introduce a new tax reform bill, which I imagine will be in the very near future. With that being said, like I said, the stock market, do not be fooled by rhetoric like, oh, the Dow Jones is the highest it's ever been. Once you get to a certain point, you know, in the business world, in the corporate world, and Suzanne's on here, she can attest to this. That is very, very misleading for middle class Americans. When the stock market starts getting unbelievably high, I don't use the term loosely. It is unbelievable because it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, and you will be the one who is hurt whenever it crashes. Not those who can put their money in you know, shell companies and make themselves LLCs to dodge taxes, and people who can establish most of their income from overseas. Those people are not going to be affected. It's going to be you and I. Those people are going to be affected marginally. And the reason why they're only going to be affected marginally are because of the policies that are being put in place right now to ensure that they can start stacking up all of their money, creating it. Because when I say creating, I mean it's legitimately a manufactured crash that they know if Trump is in office, the GOP is in office, and hell, even if Democrats are in office, they are going to be bailed out because they're paying all the politicians. And the cycle continues. So I can't urge you enough. And then, oh, by the way, the last part. And then whenever it crashes, guess who's the first person to buy all those stocks back up? Or the first people to buy all those stocks back up? The people who are benefiting from this tax break right now, from this tax legislation. It's crazy. It's a racket. We're getting played, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, like I said, document how these taxes personally affect you in your state. Try to do the best you can to learn what it means for you, whether you're in California, New York, Alabama, Florida, and get back to me. Let me know what you find out so we can try to do a show to show how it affects people individually. I will be doing another show later on today. That's going to be fun. Can't tell you what it's about yet, though, but just know you want to tune in. I'm gonna post. I have a couple videos I want to post as well, so be looking out for those. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. It's always a great time. I'm glad seeing you all up and being productive. I hope I was able to inject some knowledge that you can pass on for the rest of the day to your friends and family who are wondering how this affects them. So, With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, find your balance. Peace.